Welcome back to the latest edition of Conference Chatter TV. My name is Eric Sorrentino. I'm the KUSports.com Big 12 blogger, and before I start picking games in Week 10 in the Big 12 of the college football season, I would like to dedicate this video to Harry Schaefer, the KU professor of economics, who recently passed away at the age of 90. Professor Schaefer was just an unbelievable teacher. He taught at KU for 52 years. He's an icon at the University of Kansas. I took his intro to econ class in 2004, and I recently had the pleasure of speaking at his 50th anniversary of teaching at KU in 2006, and it was so evident how many lives that man touched. He was just the nicest guy, a great teacher. I started the Facebook group, Harry Schaefer is the Man, has over 700 people in it now, and just looking on some of the wall posts on that page, it's evident how much he will be missed. He will be greatly missed here in Lawrence, and just want to dedicate this video to him. I think something at the University of Kansas, whether it be a building, an auditorium, or even a street, should be named after him. He had such an unbelievable impact at Kansas, and I don't think it'll take long for Kansas to realize that. So I would look for something in the future to be named after him. He will be greatly missed. Let's get to picking some Big 12 games here in Week 10 of the college football season. I am 58-15 on the year, picking at a 79.4% clip. Let's start with Saturday's games. It's going to be Kansas at Kansas State at 11:30 a.m. in Manhattan. This is an extremely difficult game to predict. KU enters the game as 3-point favorites. I think it'll be really, really close. I'm going to go with KU just barely winning this game. You know, if the Jayhawks have any chance or still have any desires of winning the North, this is a must-win situation here for the Jayhawks, who can really ill afford to slip to 1-4 on the season with the loss here, and then have K-State move to 4-2. They'd really be out of it at that point. You know, at the beginning of the season, I picked KU to win the North, and I think that this is kind of my this is going to be kind of my last effort to support KU in winning the North here and support my preseason prediction. You know, the Jayhawks offense has really struggled lately, and I look for Todd Reesing to really bounce back. I think that, you know, this week there's been a lot that is made about, you know, his benching, and I think that, you know, that team only, or that players only meeting that he called earlier this week, you know, I look for KU really to bounce back and be inspired by the play of Todd Reesing, and you know, I look for KU to narrowly win this game. I think I predicted them in our game day edition of the Lawrence Journal-World to only win by 1 point. So I think it'll be really close. And, you know, K-State's been playing very well lately with the boosts from Daniel Thomas, obviously, at running back, and Brandon Banks at the wide receiver spot, and returning kicks. 4 touchdowns already on special teams for Brandon Banks on kickoff returns, which is a Big 12 record. KU really needs to control Brandon Banks, but I think the KU defense steps up enough, and I think you know, I really put this one. You know, if KU is going to win this one, it's going to be Reesing, it's going to be, you know, Briscoe, and it's going to be Meyer stepping up for Kansas, and I think they barely do that, or barely win in Manhattan. So we'll see how much Kansas shows up to that one. It'll be a great game. I think it'll be very close. KU's won 4 or 5, I believe, and I look for them to take it as well on Saturday. Let's move forward to some other games here. Central Florida at Texas, kind of a random game here in the Big 12 season. Texas, of course, switching this spot with Texas Tech. They bumped Texas Tech up way earlier in the non-conference season and now have Central Florida here. I mean, you know, Texas should win this by 30 to 40 points with no problem. An interesting stat I found on the Longhorns, though, just kind of browsing around the stats, the NCAA stats, is that Texas is first in the country in third down defense, which I find very impressive. You know, we know the Longhorns defense is much improved from last year, but opposing teams have only converted 23% of their third downs against Texas. Of course, again, best in the nation, and that's, you know, the secondary's improved. I think that more than anything for Texas. Now, we know they have a good defense, but I think that really kind of, put it into perspective how much and how far they've come this year. If you remember 2 years ago in 2007, UT barely escaped. In fact, it was 35-32 at Central Florida that they barely won that game. Kevin Smith, if you'll remember, the former Central Florida running back, now a running back for the Detroit Lions, had 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that game. And then, of course, Jamal Charles, who plays for the Chiefs now, had 153 yards and a touchdown for UT. So a great battle 2 years ago, but I do not think it'll be nearly that close this year. I look for Texas, particularly in Austin, to just run away with this one. Next, we have Texas A&M at Colorado, 12:30 p.m. Texas A&M, they've made progress this year, particularly since last year they were in the cellar in the Big 12 South. Not the case this year. They're 2-2 in conference and could qualify for a bowl with a victory here in Boulder. I'm going with A&M. They've looked really good these past 2 weeks, coming up with victories, and I think they'll make it 3 in a row here against Colorado. Which has really struggled on offense. Recently, the news came out that their running back Darrell Scott will be transferring and no longer with the program. Colorado, quite frankly, they have one of the worst offenses in the country, not just the Big 12, but in the country. And I look for A&M to win this game, even in Boulder. Missouri really handled Colorado last week in Boulder. I don't know if A&M will, control the game quite that much, but they still should be able to win that one. Moving on to Baylor at Missouri at 1 p.m. I'm going with Missouri in this one at home. They looked really good against Colorado last week. And if you look at the Tigers' remaining schedule, it's probably the most favorable in the Big 12 North. When you look at Baylor this week, then they go at K-State, home to Iowa State, and then, of course, the Kansas game in Arrowhead. All winnable games for the Tigers. I mean, who started 0-3 in conference. They had a really rough start to the year against some really good teams, but now they're coming around and their schedule is considerably more favorable. I've heard a lot of, just kind of buzz, whether it be radio or just around, here about Missouri potentially being the favorite now in the North because of their schedule. It sets up really well, so we'll see how the Tigers do. I think they prevail with no problem here at home against Baylor, though. Number 18, Oklahoma State at Iowa State is our next game on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Austin Arnaud will be back under center for Iowa State in this game. He had missed the previous, I think it was 2 or so games with injury. But I'm liking Oklahoma State on the road. I mean, they've pretty much won the games this year that they're supposed to win. I mean, they slipped up earlier against Houston and then just got manhandled against Texas last week. But they usually win the games that they should win, and this is no exception in Ames. Oklahoma State should win this game. I look for them to bounce back after an ugly performance against Texas. Final game of the day, number 20, Oklahoma at Nebraska in Lincoln, 7 p.m. This is kind of an interesting game. I'm taking Oklahoma. They're only 6-point favorites. I like Oklahoma to cover. I just see this as a very bad matchup for the Nebraska offense and true freshman quarterback Cody Green, who made his first start last week against Baylor. He looked decent, but this is not going to be Baylor. This is going to be maybe the best defense in the Big 12 in Oklahoma. And OU leads the Big 12 in sacks. I look for Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator, to really mix up the blitzing packages just like he did against Texas and Colt McCoy. Really confuse McCoy in that game in Red River. Texas obviously won, but OU's defense played exceptional, and it has been playing exceptional the past couple weeks. You remember the 75, 80, whatever yard interception return by Dominique Franks against Kansas. It seems that every week the OU defense comes up with a huge play, and I see the OU defense really carrying this game and limiting the points that Nebraska is able to put up on the board. So I like OU relatively big in that game in Lincoln. So I think that's all for Week 10. I appreciate you guys checking out the latest edition of Conference Chatter TV. I'll be back this weekend to reflect as usual. Thanks, guys, and have a good one.